On today's show, Anthony Davis, if you're going to play for the Dallas Mavericks and finish out this season, there's going to be more expected of you than what happened against the Brooklyn Nets tonight. That's just the way it's going to be. On today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm going to get a city like that.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Wesley.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave me alone.
Your team every day.
Gotta be born with a dog up.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being an everydayer, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. And joining me, as always, on a post-game, the post-game prodigy from the great Slightly Biased YouTube channel. What you got for me, Slightly Biased?
So I weirdly learned a lot about my fandom tonight. Because I had teetered on not caring for weeks now. And you could attest to that. You made a joke in one of our group texts that I only have like 5 games left to beat. But this game, I found myself at the end so upset and worked up as to just how bad
He's back.
the basketball was in the last 5 or so minutes that honestly, I wonder how much of it was I was mad at the Mavs or I was just, as a basketball fan watching, I'm just like, what is this dreadful performance I'm seeing on the court?
That's right. Today's episode, we'll get into the Mavs' loss to the Brooklyn Nets. We'll talk about the return of Daniel Gafford. Great return from Daniel Gafford. We'll talk about him. We'll talk about how the Nets just bombed threes against the Mavericks and took a ton of threes, looking like the Boston Celtics out there. The Brooklyn Nets, wrong New England state, I guess. Wrong Northeast area city. But we got to start with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, we all questioned you coming back. You made a big deal about you wanted to come back for the guys, fight for the guys. I was for that too. And I was like, all right, I get it. If you want to come back for the guys and if you want to come back and be, the star player and lead them to whatever they can accomplish this season, I get it. Go for it. Do that. If you're going to do that, though, and you're going to be the star player, 10-time All-Star and everything that comes with it, there's going to be more asked of you. You cannot score 12 points in a game against this Brooklyn Nets team. You cannot look across the court and see Drew Timme in front of you and not score like 30 points on a guy like that. You cannot let a 12-0 run for the Brooklyn Nets happen after you finally get a 10-point lead in this game in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes left in this game, and then you lose the lead completely with 4:31 left in the game, and you're down by 2 in the fourth quarter to this Brooklyn Nets team. No Cam Johnson, no Cam Thomas, no DeAnthony Melton, Ben Simmons. When's the last time he played for the Nets? He doesn't play for the Nets anymore. More is going to be asked of you, Anthony Davis, if you are going to be the star player to start. And I'm starting there. There's a bunch of other reasons they lost this game, but you start with the star player because he's the one, right?
Yeah.
For him to go 2 of 4 from the free throw line, I know they were doubling him. They weren't doubling him that much to me. And we did this with Luka. I'm going to do this with Anthony Davis too.
Yeah, I mean, you always go as your best player goes, and AD's the best player on this team. But since his return, man, I just, I just admire AD's commitment to return. I admire the fact that he wanted to come back and play for his guys. Like, I get all that. The fact that he wanted to put on a show for the fans and give the fans something to be somewhat excited about. Like, I respect all of that, and I'm happy he has that mindset. But he just doesn't look good on the court. Like, beyond the stats, right? He looks slow. I mean, some of that's obviously he's missed a good chunk of time and, just kind of working his way back in conditioning wise, that's to be expected. But also it just doesn't look like he's going, I would even say like 50% at times, it's just slow footed. Because
slow
of
to
it,
get back.
Slow to get back. You don't even feel his impact. Like, I can maybe excuse some of the stuff if it's like, I still feel that defensive player of the year impact defensively and it changes the game. You don't even really feel that because, again, he just looks slow, and it's to be expected to look sluggish. I want to continue to say that, but it is just kind of, if the goal was maybe, hey, we want the fans to like feel good about something heading into next season, that is not being achieved. And,
a lot of the fans are not feeling better.
No, and it sucks because you're watching it. It just feels like AD is like a PJ Washington type player. When the hopes and dreams is that he's a top 7-8 player in the league for you, and he's playing at that level. And again, maybe it's stupid to have expected that, but I mean, we're talking about not even including tonight, heading into this game since he was returned. We're 35% from the field. He's 1 of 12 from 3 since he's come back. I mean, he's just not playing well. And yeah, it is kind of like, came back for this. We like rushed him back and all of that for this.
that's the next thing, is that if he's going to come back and look like this, then why did you come back, right? Like, if like the Mavs are not capable of a lot of the things that we talked about, and I guess even at their highest peak, right, that for this season, they win a game against the Thunder. They finally, they make it out of the play-in. They go to the playoffs. They win a game against the Thunder in some way. PJ goes off again. Anthony Davis dominates them like he has in the past. Then they win a game against the Thunder even, right? Like, that is what we think the peak of the season could even be.
Yeah.
And so, but the way he's looking right now, I don't even think you get there at this point in the season. And so it's concerning what the season is going to be. You just hope that he doesn't get injured more because of the way that he looks and pushing it and rushing it and things like that. But just focusing on this game, the small picture, going back to the small picture, 10 shots. 5 of 10. I mean, he's still on his 28-minute minutes restriction, so he plays 28 minutes. And the Mavs did win those minutes. They were a +7 in those minutes, but you got to be better than that against this Nets team. You were better against this Nets team like a week ago. We saw it, right? It's not like, oh, he's playing a tough matchup. He's playing Jokic or he's playing whoever. He's playing a team that he dominated not too long ago that the Mavs comfortably beat. And then he came back. They had a different game plan, and then they beat you because of factors that we'll talk about, but Anthony Davis not being an all-star level player in this game was one of the reasons.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll take it back to the big picture. This is kind of the concern I would say, right? Is you have a fourth quarter, a game that ends up being close, ends up being a 1-point game. AD takes one shot in 7 minutes. Now they were sending help, they were doubling, but they really kind of stopped doubling at times in the second half and let Timmy live on an island when he would get posted up on AD. And it did not feel like AD was aggressive enough in those circumstances. And that could be kind of the criticism against Anthony Davis is sometimes you finish a game and it's like, why did you just attempt 11 shots? That should never be a game. Yeah. And I know he's just coming back from an injury. Okay. But this is a concern that I have. And something that I'm fearful we'll probably see at times next year where it's just like you go to the season and we're saying there's no world in which AD should ever attempt less than 17, 18 shots in a game, especially considering Kyrie's not healthy. I think you're going to get games like this where it just feels like he's not making an impact really. And you saw in the first half, he was getting double teamed and that was leading to shots for his teammates. He was getting going. Timmy realistically had no chance of guarding him. Was finishing at the rim, made a couple of middies, and then the second half that just completely and totally went away, and he just felt timid. It just felt like he wasn't as engaged on the offensive end, which that's really what it is to me. Is you miss shots, whatever, but when we go stretches at a time where it feels like you're not really on the court, that's where the problem is.
There was a moment late in this game that I think embodies everything you just said, because I agree with you. 1:33 left in the game. Caleb Martin drove in the lane, got fouled, and he made one out of the 2 free throws. The Mavs are up 107 to 105 at that point. By the way, a lead with a minute and a half left, and he lost this game. But Anthony Davis was calling for the ball. The Mavs couldn't get it to him. They couldn't get it to him at that point, and that's why Caleb Martin, with the clock winding down, had to drive and take that tough shot that eventually got fouled for, and it ended up working out even though he missed one of the free throws. But they couldn't get the ball to AD. They couldn't set up. He's trying to get the ball around the free throw line. And after the play, Caleb Martin gets fouled. There's a guy 3 or 4 rows behind me that yells, "AD, get in the paint!" and then Spencer Dinwiddie, while the free throw is being set up, Spencer Dinwiddie huddles everybody together and is looking at AD and is motioning for him and motioning how he would set up a post and basically telling him how they can get him the ball. And that's still something that they've struggled with, because this is a brand new thing for this team to be able to set up a guy like Anthony Davis. They've done all right with the rim runners and the finishers in the Kai Jones, a Moses Brown. Obviously, Gafford in his return tonight we'll get into was great, but they haven't figured out how to use Anthony Davis yet. And Anthony Davis is a star that has to be used in a certain way, right? And I think that adds to a lot of the frustration too, is that you have to not only bring in this new star, but also use him in a different way than this offense has been set up. Luka would just make bigs good. He's making Jackson Hayes look like an NBA player again all of a sudden. And you just don't have that anymore with the Mavericks. And so that's part of the frustration with Anthony Davis on the offensive end.
Yeah, and that's also part of the reason why we were kind of saying, what's the point? Those of us who are kind of I don't see the point of bringing AD back, even if it does look like you're going to make a play-in tournament, because, one, you risk the re-injury, but also, two, you don't have a point guard. You're playing out this season without a point guard. So
you have one. You have Dinwiddie. I'll give Dinwiddie credit. He had 8 assists.
Right.
He's become much better of a playmaker, but I'm with you.
No, for sure. But you wouldn't say that that's Dinwiddie's like. Dinwiddie doesn't draw attention the way that a Kyrie Irving does, right? And I thought Dinwiddie played pretty well in this game, so I'm not like poo-pooing Dinwiddie, but it is just it's tough to get him going. And there was a lot of possessions where he got the ball, 2 feet inside the 3-point line against Timmy, and it was just like, all right, go, and he didn't go. So that's where the frustration was.
I disagree with you. Spencer Dinwiddie got a ton of attention when he wanted to change his contract and get paid in Bitcoin. I mean, he got a ton of attention for that. So,
True. That was, that could have worked out for him. I don't follow the crypto sphere, so I don't know. I think it's doing pretty well.
Coming up, Daniel Gafford made his return. Maybe the one big positive we can take is that he looks really good in his return. Let's talk about what we saw from Gafford and more in today's Locked On Mavs. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Monarch Money. I've been using Monarch Money. I like it because I'm a person that needs to know where all of my dollars are going. All the dollars, all the cents, so it can make sense to me. If you ever check your bank account and wonder where your money is going, Monarch Money can help you with that. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments. I love that I can connect all my different cards and savings account and things like that. If you have a savings account in a different place than your banking and you have a credit card in a different place than your banking and all that, you can combine all of those. I even put my mortgage on there to see how I stand with everything all together. So it's not just stop managing your money, start building wealth with Monarch Money. The all-in-one convenience is something I love. But like I mentioned, there's all kinds of different things that you can put together into one to see all your money up front. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 50% off your first year. Also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks Daily Fantasy made easy. All you have to do is go to Prize Picks, and baseball season's back. I just went to a Rangers game. It was great, and I wish I would have picked more on the Adolis Garcia home runs because he did hit a home run in that game, and it was awesome to see. Don't ask how the Rangers did tonight. I'm not going to tell you that. But I wish I would have picked that on Prize Picks because it was awesome. Pick more or less on 2-player projections, and if you're right, you get up to 1,000 times your cash, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first-inning runs. Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. You can build your lineup. You can combine baseball players with basketball players of any level, degree, all that kind of stuff. WNBA starting up soon. College basketball is ending. You can do all that kind of stuff. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Put $5 to a lineup. You get $50 instantly whether that lineup wins or loses. That code is LOCKEDONNBA, all one word, for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, what we call our listeners. I appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. Everybody that rocks with me, I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me and for listening to the show and still being a Mavs fan, especially everybody that I talked to. I took more pictures with, fans that were under the age of 15 today I think ever. It's awesome to see the scope of the Raccoon Squad from the oldest to the youngest. It's been awesome.
Is there a take that's who's going to games? It's just families, and that's all that's left.
I don't know. I was just waiting for you to make a snarky joke about how awkwardly I just said that.
No, I didn't want to go there.
Thank you. Today's return of Daniel Gafford was awesome, I thought. 17 points to lead the Mavericks, 7 rebounds, 5 of them were on the offensive end, 2 assists, and he only played in 18 minutes. Kid said he was going to be in a 15 to 20 minutes restriction, so he played under that. And I thought he was great. The Mavs are good at using these bigs, and I thought he fit in exactly where. There's some rust a little bit earlier, but they figured it out, and AD even had a great alley-oop to him. Gafford just came back, and it felt pretty seamless except for the first couple minutes.
Yeah, I thought Gafford was really good tonight. I mean, there's the size that the Mavs can deploy really, I think, worked pretty well against this Nets team when those two are on the court at the same time. And you miss the energy, you miss the rebounding, you just miss that presence around the rim where you give Gafford, especially in a matchup like this, give Gafford the ball around the dunker spot, and it just feels like he's finishing. He's going up, he's dunking it. He's gotten so much better at that. I really am impressed. Obviously, he missed a lot of time, which sucks. But, I mean, if you had to give singular awards for this Mavs team, I mean, he was probably the Mavs' most improved player over the course of the season. How much more confident he looked. It's crazy that, his best stretch of basketball, and this is somebody who I've always kind of slotted as kind of a point guard dependent center just because he is a rim running threat and just the nature of those players. But his best basketball this year was after Luka went out with an injury, and he just stepped up. Derek Lively was out. He stepped up and played at such a high level before he hurt his knee. And it was nice to see him get back to that. I do have to say, I mean, he hurts his knee again, knee-to-knee collision.
Tough.
With what, 3 minutes left, 4 minutes left. The last, I'm sure we'll talk about it. The last 6 minutes of this game for the Mavs was bafflingly bad. I mean, just shockingly terrible how bad it was. Part of it is Gafford can barely walk up and down the court for 2 minutes, and you have a foul to give. You're not even under the 2 minute mark. You have a foul to give. You can intentionally foul, get Gafford out the game. And you don't do that, and you spend 2 minutes. Gafford spends 2 minutes barely limping up the court. I mean, what is going on there? I was in disbelief that they let that happen. And he scored a bucket. He got fouled. Like, he still did stuff, but I mean, I'm shocked. Like, you're playing him on a minute restriction. You're obviously worried about his injury, as you should be at this point in the season. What are we realistically playing for? Let's be honest with ourselves. What are we doing there? I mean, that's horrible.
I don't think they couldn't have taken him out at this point at the 2 minute mark, but it was 2:07 where Dinwiddie got doubled. Gafford rolled, got fouled, went 1 of 2 from the free throw line. Gafford was hurt at this point. Like, he was limping up and down. He was grabbing the knee for a while. Yeah. And he turns around to the bench and he does the thumbs up at the bench. And I'm like, the Mavs then took him out with a minute 33. So I guess they played another couple possessions there. That was after the Caleb Martin one that we talked about where AD couldn't get the ball.
Yeah.
And they put Max Christie back in for him. But if you're the Mavericks, you cannot believe your players when they tell you that they're okay anymore. They have lost the benefit of the doubt. For them to just turn around and be like, I'm good. I'm gonna stay in the game. Right? Like, you just can't do that anymore. You've got to put their health above what they say, because man, that is just tough. I'm at that point with this Mavericks team.
Can we laugh at the fact that he spent 2 minutes? And don't take this as a criticism to Gafford. I mean, he's a warrior.
We just said he played well.
Yeah, he played great, and I admire him for like playing through that knee injury. But can we laugh at the comedic side of Gafford spending 2-3 minutes barely being able to get up and down the court, them not taking him out, and then him finally looking at the bench and saying, "All right, guys, I kind of walked it off. I'm good," and then them taking him out right after that. Like, them waiting until he says, "Actually, guys, I walked it off. I'm good," and then being like, "Actually, let's take him out now."
What are the two the comedy and tragedy masks? I feel like they just fused at this point for this Maverick season, because there's been almost just as much comedy as there has been tragedy this season.
Absolutely.
for the Mavs. But so we talked about Gafford. We gave him his credit. We talked about his injury. I'm really curious to see what happens to him the rest of this stretch and the rest of these next couple of games. But for the Mavs, they lose this game because you lost the math battle. The Nets put up 51 threes. They hit 20 of them. Mavs went 10 of 30 from the 3-point line, and the Mavs dominated in the paint, 56-36. But you got beat by 30 on the 3-point line.
Yeah, I mean that kudos to the Nets. They came with a game plan that they were going to bomb threes. They generated a ton of corner threes. Weren't accurate on those corner threes, but a lot of it was just high screens. Mavs, helping the helper and then giving up a corner three. I guess tagging on the roll guy and then giving up a corner three because of that. I kind of understand. Like, it's not like the Nets were deploying any knockdown 3-point shooters. No Cam Johnson in this game. You kind of got to live with the results. And the Nets did cool off pretty significantly down the stretch. But it's really hard. We've talked about this at times with this team. When you get outscored from the 3-point line by 30 points, like that's kind of a tough battle to make up. And to the Mavs' credit, I mean, they choked the game away. Like, this game was over and done with, and they completely and totally choked it away. That, I don't know, teams like these, it's going to be interesting because this Mavs team, especially with no point guard right now, it's kind of difficult to imagine them generating a ton of threes, or at least threes that you feel really good about. So, I mean, that's probably how you'd want to beat this team, especially with their bigs back.
Well, and to go back to how they defended those threes, they have Anthony Davis and Gafford in, who are Anthony Davis, great defender, but we've already talked about he's moving slow. Gafford, slow-footed-ish big, right?
Yeah.
So you have to play this rotating defense where they're all stretched out and everything, and then you have to rotate and run over to the other side, and like you just can't get there fast enough if you have bigs like that. So they took advantage of the Nets took advantage of the Mavs personnel in deploying that scheme for sure. You also got a D'Angelo Russell and one against Caleb Martin with a minute 16 left, and you had a Claxton and one finish. That ended the game. Those two plays right there, where the Mavs just couldn't defend those two guys, and sandwiched in the middle of that was Anthony Davis missing that floater off of a Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie got double teamed. Anthony Davis missed a floater right there. Like, that sequence right there sunk them because they had a lead right before that.
Yeah, and it was really, you got to go back to when they were up 10. They gave up an offensive rebound on a missed shot, inexcusable offensive rebound. PJ couldn't grab it. It was 2-on-1 because Hardy was right there. That led to a wide open 3 for the Nets. And then the next possession, you're up 7, with 6-7 minutes left. That should be a game you win. Clay, who, his shot selection down the stretch of this game was kind of shocking. And I'm going to contradict myself here, but I'll explain why in a bit. But Clay picked up a ball that was rolling on the ground and just threw up a 3 and missed, and that led to a fast break layup, and it was just all downhill from there. So, it was just a comedy of errors down the stretch for this Mavs team.
The comedy and tragedy of the Dallas Mavericks. This is an embarrassing loss.
Yeah, it is. It's a bad one
because you just beat them. I was watching this game with my parents, and we were driving to this game, and I said they should win this game by 30.
Yeah. I don't know.
I look stupid now?
Yeah, I don't know if this Mavs team is like a team where you can be like, they should win by 30 points. But
they just beat them by like that.
No, I agree.
They have the best player in the game. They got Gafford back. They had the momentum play with Gafford coming back. Like it was a home game.
They have like the 5, depending on how you want it, they have like the 4 or 5 best players in the game. Like depending on how you want to rank these guys.
I was gonna say, where do you put Russell and I guess Keon Johnson was really good for them.
Yeah, he was great tonight, and Tyrese Martin was good. Jalen Wilson made plays. Like man, this was a bad one. If the Mavs were tanking, I would still be like, this was a bad loss. Like I would be like, all right, that's cool. You needed to lose the game, but I'd be like, that was just the way it happened was bad because you were trying.
Yeah, they are trying. That's the thing. We can't even say, oh, covert tank. Good tank move there. Anthony Davis missing that floater. We can't even play that game anymore.
No, the fun's gone with the tanking jokes. Like this was just a real loss. There's no hey, wink wink. This was that was bad.
That's why you have the serene waterfall behind you instead of the tank.
We're just trying to stay calm. Just trying to stay as calm as possible.
We're staying calm. Coming up, let's talk about other reasons the Mavs lost this game. We'll also talk about what else we saw from the Mavs in this one. We'll talk about the Mavs' future coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Game Time. I told you that I went to go see a Rangers game. I used Game Time to go to that game because it helped me to find the best seat that I could get for the money that I wanted to pay for a game like that. Used Game Time Picks. Filters out all the fluff and shows you only the best deals so you can get going on buying the tickets, figuring out what you're going to do, parking, all that other kind of stuff. So you're not just searching and sifting through all the different other kinds. I even looked at other kinds of tickets from other sites that I won't mention, and there was a bunch of fees at the end of it that I was surprised by that made the tickets way more expensive than what I got at Game Time. Game Time shows you the deal up front, shows you exactly what you're going to pay up front because you can turn in the all-in pricing. That's great as well, and you can go and get peace of mind with seat views before you buy. No surprise fees, the lowest price guaranteed. You can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, Slightly. I teased like 3 or 4 things because I didn't really know what we were going to. I don't know where to go with this. I guess I want to talk more about how this is an embarrassing loss for the Mavs. But the Kings and Suns refuse to cede any, to take any ground from the Mavs right now. The Kings lost again. The Suns are what you've dubbed the pathetic Suns. Keep losing. The Mavs are just going to fall backwards into this. They're in the 9th seed, but they're in the 9th seed still right now, right?
Yeah, look, Katie's out for at least a week. Their season feels, for all intents and purposes, over. That's with their schedule being as rough as it is. I don't know. The Kings are a disaster right now. I've been watching.
They're 3 games under 500.
They have been horrible. Their vibes are terrible. I think you're gonna make it just because. But yeah, it's not on the back of you going on some crazy late end of season run. It's just because you, to your credit, you didn't fold over and die, completely and totally die during this stretch, and just because of that, you're now in a position where you will make a playing game. Hell, you may even host a playing game. What would that be like?
That is gonna be wild. The fan. Well, coming to games, there's a bunch of people here that are just here to go to a game, and so I think
playing game is different, though.
Would it be?
I have no idea.
I think a lot of people would just think it was a playoff game and be like, oh, yeah, the Mavs are in the playoffs. Let's go support the Mavs.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine like a raucous crowd for the 9-10 play-in game, but I'm really struggling to get there.
Listen, guys, if we win this game, we get to play either the Timberwolves, the Clippers, or maybe the Warriors in another one winner-take-all game. A winner-take-all game is fun, though.
Yeah, it is. But then it's like, and then if we win that game, then we get to play the Thunder in round 1.
That's your gift for trying and fighting hard for the end of the season, is to go play the Thunder, who are amazing.
I mean, at this point, you're gonna make the play-in tournament. You might as well win, I guess. That's what makes tonight frustrating. It's like, all right, we've thrown tanking out the window.
I had resided myself. I had done the whole severance procedure. I've gone through it where I'm like, all right, when I watch the Mavs play, I'm going to be excited and see if they win. And then when they're not playing, I'll focus on all the other stuff. And that's why we had Tim McMahon on yesterday to focus on all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But now, as soon as I come to grips with the Mavs like winning and me being okay with it, and like, all right, they're not going to tank. It's just not what they're going to do. As soon as that happens, they lose a game like this, and you're like, here we are back again.
Yeah, and I mean, it might not matter. Like, it really might not matter what you do between now and the end of the season because the Suns really might not win another game. Like, that's actually something that's on the table. All being dead serious, and the Mavs schedule is really not all that difficult. Clippers twice in a back-to-back. I mean, that's a tough one. You got Atlanta, you've got LA, the Lakers. I mean, we all know what that game is going to be all about. Shout out to Four Corners Brewery on Tuesday night before that game.
That's right. 7 p.m.
But that's the second time a back-to-back for the Lakers, and I know they wouldn't dare not play Luka, but it might not be as like intense of a game as we're making it out to be, if that makes sense.
Well, where are the Lakers? The Lakers are in the standings. They've got stuff to prove.
Right, they might have stuff to play for.
Game and a half back from Denver. Game and a half up on the Grizzlies.
It'll probably be more important to be well rested and stuff like that rather than and they're playing the Rockets right now, and a lot of that could depend on how this game ends because they could still get the 2 seed theoretically. Right?
They still have stuff to play for, and Luka's going to be motivated, and Luka's teammates will be motivated to
for sure
to help him. And like in those games, you always see the teammates step up for the player too. If the player has too much emotion, somebody else is going to go off. We'll get like a Dorian Finney-Smith 5-3 game or something like that.
Oh yeah, I could definitely see that happening.
If you're the Brooklyn Nets, how are you feeling about your franchise right now?
Well, I got to be real. If I'm a Nets fan, I don't know how I'd feel about this season. It's one of those strange things where it's like you can't hate the players. They played hard all year. You've been pretty well coached. Shout out to Jordy Fernandez. But yeah, I'm looking at the landscape of the league, and I'm like, we traded to get our picks back, and
great.
It feels like we could have been worse, honestly. Like having the 6th best odds right now, you've been surpassed by the Sixers. Having the 6th best odds in a draft that, from everything I've heard, I haven't done much research, but everything I've heard, 1 through 5 is pretty loaded, and then beyond that, you're kind of throwing darts at a board, hoping you land like a franchise-altering player. Versus the 1 through 5 feels like not locks. There's nothing guaranteed about the draft, but it feels pretty good. I don't know. That definitely doesn't feel good.
They won like 6 more games than they should have so far. By the way. That's the difference between where Charlotte is and where Brooklyn is, and that's the difference between a 14% chance of Cooper Flag and a 9% chance of Cooper Flag, which 9 is not nothing.
No, 9's nothing, but wow, this is really weird. So your best odds when you have the 6th best odds are to get the 7th overall pick. This stuff's all confusing. When you have the 6th best odds, you only have an 8% chance. You have the higher chance of getting the 1st overall pick than the 6th overall pick. Isn't that interesting?
I'm just gonna let the rest of the show be slightly trying to figure out math.
Well, it's very weird to me. I'm trying to figure it out, and I can't. I know it all adds up to 100. It all adds up to 100.
You want to break your brain even more?
Sure.
The Sixers, who are in the 5th spot, have the highest chance to go to 7th.
Yeah.
For the 5th spot to go to 7th.
Well, because if any team below them gets moved up, somebody in the top 4 gets knocked out.
That's why the math works that way.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. It's kind of like a double-edged, like it's complicated because you don't really have anybody on your roster that you would pin as like this is a future cornerstone of our franchise. You have some exciting young players who have played well and some guys who have played well, but nobody who you're like, this is a building block moving forward no matter what for us. But I think you sleep good knowing we built, like, our culture feels good. Jordi Fernandez feels like a good coach. Like, I guess they're going to play the KD Kyrie thing again is kind of what it sounds like.
What do you mean? They're going to trade for one of them?
Well, no, not those two players specifically. I'm saying they're going to try to just build a team where our superstar says, I want to go there. And that's how they're going to approach things. Because there was just a report I saw right after the game ended that Giannis is their number one priority. I mean, that's a real report.
My number one priority is President of the United States.
I'm trying to. So if Giannis does demand a trade, which I don't think is off the table, why would it be to Brooklyn? You know,
you're in New York. That's like the only appeal.
I know, but I feel like at this stage in his career, wouldn't it just be purely about winning? I feel like there'd have to be another player going, and it's be like KD and Kyrie talking themselves into it. Part 2.
Yeah. Well, if you're Sean Marks and you're super tall, by the way, Sean Marks is super tall. I saw him today, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's like 6'9".
Maybe he can suit up.
Like the tallest GM. If you're Sean Marks, you're trying to convince that player that your spot is right, and so I don't know how they do that.
They really do. I've appreciated the Nets season from an outsider.
I have too.
They play hard.
I did find it funny that they started Wilson, Johnson, and Williams. And I tweeted, I said they started a Wilson, a Williams, and a Johnson. Name all their first names. And he got so many responses that were just really funny.
That is pretty funny.
What generic names.
The March basketball is hilarious.
Go check out Slightly Biased, great YouTube channel. Good stuff happening all the time over there. Like he said, April 8th at Four Corners Brewery, we'll have a live show. We'll be in person, not like streaming live. We'll be live in person. Join us. It'll be fun. We'll hang out. 7 p.m., Four Corners Brewery. It's great stuff all the time. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. More stuff throughout the week. I'll be back tomorrow, maybe with the puppy cam. We'll see. Maybe the vibes need a puppy cam tomorrow. Then Slightly Now have the Mavs Hawks after that. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Peace out. Boom.
Bye-bye.
I was waiting for the quip.